Okay, before we get started, I wanted to talk about Dev 30, which is launching in February. I've been teaching people to code full-time for the last 7 years, and I've seen how few people make it through the initial process. This is usually our prep course where we teach students their very first programming language. People who don't make it through fail to realize that learning to code is a whole person experience. And here's what I mean. Oftentimes when you're learning to code, you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to question whether you really have what it takes. You're going to realize that your attention span is small and your ability to focus is weak, and you'll become overwhelmed that you'll never get there. That's because this is hard, and this is the hardest part of the entire process, learning your first programming language, going from 0 to 10. It's the most difficult part, and it takes more than just willpower to make it through. So for that reason, we're creating a 30-day cohort-based JavaScript course that goes beyond just learning JavaScript, and we're going to be focusing on 4 areas: your skills, your mindset, your habits, and your network. At the end of this, you'll know the complete fundamentals of JavaScript. You'll have a plan for what's next for you in tech. You'll belong to a network of other builders, and you'll be empowered to build the future. Since this is the first one, and it starts on February 14th, it's our beta program, it will cost you nothing to join. And in fact, if you complete all the objectives of the program, you'll be eligible to win a massive discount on Parsity tuition. Again, Parsity is our online code school, if you decide to indeed take that next step. So to learn more and apply, you can go to dev30.xyz. We'll have a link in the show notes. Again, we start on February 14th, and I'm excited to work with many of you. Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your network, your habits, and more. Today, our guest is Rony Rosenberg. He's a squad leader and accomplished software engineer at HiBob, and he was one of my very first Coding Bootcamp students in Tel Aviv, Israel, back in 2016. On this episode, we get to catch up and see where he is 6 years in and get his unique perspective on the industry as a Coding Bootcamp grad, from living in Chile to Tel Aviv. It's a fun conversation that I think you will enjoy. All right, recording. Rony, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I want to start with, I'm sure, one of us will give the background, but I'll go ahead and step in and say for the listeners kind of like what the background is. And forgive me if this isn't a large part of why this is interesting to me, is because so I met you in, man, what was the year? Was that 2016?
2016. Yeah.
Okay, so
15?
Yeah. I think 16.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I helped, me and my family were living in Tel Aviv, and I was helping Avi, who started Elevation Academy, start, I think it was the first Coding Bootcamp in Tel Aviv.
I think you started at the same time that others started doing it at the same, but you were the first one doing it like full-time bootcamp.
What was the Israeli Tech Challenge was doing something at the same time?
They've been doing that, for a long time, but it's not the same.
There was somebody it was like a guy's name. What was the other program? It was like a guy's name. What was it?
John Bryce.
John Bryce. That's right. But they're all these part-time things.
I checked them out before I checked Elevation.
Cool. And you were in that first class of students, which for me was like hellacious. I mean, I was up all night, up early mornings. I mean, literally learning and writing the curriculum and basically just making stuff up. And then somehow y'all got jobs, which tickled me to death and changed my life. Like I could just breathe after that happened. But man, tell me about the story. I want to back up because, our listeners are kind of in the position that you were in 2016. Because I know you were working at Wix doing some customer service type stuff. Exactly. But tell me a little bit about how did you get to Tel Aviv? Why did you move to Tel Aviv? And then what was the coding transition like to doing Elevation?
Cool. So my path is actually very interesting and different usually than many people, especially immigrants in Israel. I'm Chilean, so you're gonna notice that already by the accent.
Love it.
I moved to Israel. I studied psychology in Chile. I finished school. I started a bachelor's degree in social sciences, and I slowly moved to psychology. I finished a 5-year degree in psychology with thesis and everything. I was ready to become a psychologist when I'm going to do a little trip in Israel, fell in love with the country, stayed basically, and never worked as a psychologist. And during that time, I was just working and learning Hebrew, mostly doing
Okay.
Ulpan, which is the course for learning Hebrew here. And
Yep.
after some point, I said I need to study something interesting, something more in Hebrew, and I moved to Jerusalem and I studied there a master in communications. And at that time, during the master, I had some time and I was able to start working at Wix, and I started support. As a student, I got promoted to full time. And then, while I was still doing the master, and then I got promoted into kind of like sort of a team leader there. And that's the moment that I noticed that I'm a pretty technical person. I used to open the console and check HTML, try to figure out bugs before we escalated to QA and stuff like that. And I started talking to developers, and I started checking what can I do with this other than just open the console. So at the moment I started talking to developers, and I started checking, okay, what is this we're using here? React, we move from Flash, what that means. So, okay, React, what is? Oh, a framework from what? From JavaScript. What's JavaScript? Okay, move on. Oh, hello world, this first thing. So what can I do more? I have time. I check a few of other bootcamps, and I started talking, and I got the program for the elevation. And I talked to you, of course. I talked to Jasmine, I think it was the secretary there back then. And you don't remember?
I remember it all.
She was Argentina, so I remember pretty well. And talked to Abby, met with Abby, and I got the program. I started showing the program back then to people at Wix, developers. And I showed them, I got feedback on it, and said, okay, yeah, this is good, this is relevant, this seems fine, this is good, this is good. Okay, cool, I'm taking the leap. And I basically just took a loan, quit my job, and moved full-time to this new career, completely new career. And yeah, you met me before, like we had the test and everything, and interviews to get into the program. And it was the first cohort over there. So a lot of experiment, very interesting, very fun, a lot of long nights. Was a very good group, very quality people. And I have friends up today that we meet regularly from there.
Yeah, I love it. It was so fun. Just those, those Thursday nights. And I didn't go on all of them because I think, I had small children. But, I think it was like Andre, right? Like showing us.
Andre, yeah.
The bellboy. He just introduced me to all these cool cocktail bars. I mean, to this day, I have a standard for cool cocktail bars based off of Andre.
Yeah, Andre. Every time that Andre comes back to Israel, we meet up and we go for cocktail bars.
I love that so much. Okay, so all right. After you finished Elevation, which was it 12? It was 12 weeks, right?
It was 3 months, full time. It was like 1,500 hours. It was something.
Yeah, it was insane. We did Node, and I think it was Angular 1, right? Because that's what was popular in Tel Aviv at that time. And I don't know if that's still the case, if Angular is like a big deal.
We did first Backbone, and then we moved to Angular.
Okay, we still do Backbone. People still hate me for that, but.
I learned to like it a little bit. Yeah, like MVC, like it's fine. It's fine. And Angular, Angular, we did a tiny bit of React also at the end.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, nowadays, the program I run, we do Backbone for context and then React. What was that process like from you finishing up Elevation to working at IBM? Because if I remember correctly, you did like a project that they had you do, right? Like this was about like fan sales or something?
Yes, we call it Fanco, and it was a lot of dashboards and charts, and they prepared this kind of hackathon project that they wanted to see, and they really wanted people from the bootcamp. And they like our project, and we had to anyways interview afterwards. And before interviewing there, still interviewing a lot of companies. I have they used to take us in bulk. The whole bootcamp will go together to an interview. And I got some interviews as well myself, and I also got some offers to work and just help people that just had an idea. That's very typical here. Like, I have an idea, help me develop it. I was like, I actually have to pay my electricity bill, so I can't really take your idea right now.
Which I think, by the way, is probably unique to like Tel Aviv.
Yeah, probably.
Because I feel like everybody in Tel Aviv is starting a startup. Have you ever watched the show Silicon Valley on HBO?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, I always compare it to Tel Aviv. It's like, yes, even the doctor is a startup founder, or you go to like the coffee cafe and the barista, like of course she has a startup,
everyone has so many problems here that they have an idea, and the people are very creative on their approach. So they're always wanting to move there.
Yeah, I think it's true. That's amazing.
Yeah, they call it Startup Nation.
Yeah, the Startup Nation. Okay, and I want to get to talking about Israel for sure, because it is such a different, interesting place, especially Tel Aviv when it comes to like tech and startups. And I want to ask about all kinds of things in that regard. So you get hired at IBM, which, to be honest, I was surprised, not because you were hired, but it was the first time I'd ever like stepped into teaching something. And from my perspective, I like basically was learning Node. I learned Angular on the fly. I didn't know Angular. Like I just came in and that was the best thing to teach. So I learned it and then, built the curriculum off of it. And I think, by the way, in hindsight, and this is actually the first episode of this podcast that we do, it talks about, I think the most important part about this whole journey for people becoming software engineers is like basically who they are, right? So I think you did well, Rony, not necessarily because, of elevation or of our school or anything like that. I think you did well because like you were into this, right? Like no matter what, I remember you were like committed that you were going to build projects, and I mean, you were intense. You were fun and hilarious too, but I remember you being intense also, you know what I mean? Like you were dialed in, man. Okay.
I'm still intense. Like whenever people I get into like my daily routine, like today in my morning is like I arrive very early, start working around 7:30, and I there with my headphones. I'm like there doing my task or whatever, and my coworkers are around me, and there's somebody there's to tap me in the shoulders like, Rony, you want to get coffee? I was afraid to bother you. I was like, oh, of course, yes. So still of that is still in me. But that's the thing. That's one of the things that moved me to study development and coding and just become at the end a software engineer. That you really like to code. You really need to like what you do. If you don't really like it, and that's something very interesting that happens here in this country. Many people ask you and consult with you. Oh, I wanna become a developer. The first thing that I say is like, why? And many people who tells me, oh, because the payment is very good, the salary, the paycheck is very good. Like,
right.
You should reconsider the reason. That's you're not gonna have fun with it. You're gonna struggle. And so I really dived into the work.
I want to drill in on that a little bit real quick, because like this is sort of a debate that I've been having on LinkedIn recently. And if you remember, do you remember Michael Eisenberg?
I remember that talk. Yeah.
He came in, I think one of the things he said was you like what you're good at, right? You enjoy what you're good at. And I don't remember his point, to be honest, but my takeaway is, well, none of these people are good at coding, right? Because we just started. So how are we to like it? So, I mean, how do you like figure that? I mean, did you like coding immediately, even whenever you were terrible at it? Or like, what was that like?
No, you hate it. You sucked at it. At the beginning, you're really, really, really bad. Like, yeah, I don't wanna see my GitHub, my early commits on my projects. I will be embarrassed. I will be really, really embarrassed of the level of coding and everything, and the logic behind it is like very, very, very low. And I think that my biggest realization when I started to actually like it and starting to get less frustrated is the moment that you realize that against the computer and against coding, the computer is always right. That's the first realization that I got, is that the computer is always right. And the moment that I understood that and I figured out, I stopped taking this personally from the computer that is attacking me and why are you doing this to me, computer? No, Rony, you're doing something wrong. The computer is right. Let's figure out what it is and let's find the tools to do it. Let's debug, let's put console logs, let's put breakpoints, let's go inspect, etc. And the moment that I figured out that, I started, I think that it did a big change in that sense. So it was very cool.
I love that. I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think a lot of people approach programming and they assume that the computer is trying to infer what you want, right?
Right.
Like they assume like people, right? Whenever if I'm at a restaurant and I'm trying to order something and I'm like, all right, do you have a dish that comes with 2 eggs and sausage? And they're like, well, we don't, but you can get 2 eggs as 2 sides and a side of sausage, right? So they're inferring what you're talking about. The computer doesn't do that. It doesn't assume anything.
No idea. That's
I
no
love
idea.
that, because this idea that like, hey, you could get frustrated with the computer, but as soon as you realize that the computer is very, very dumb, then you can start breaking down your instructions real slowly and just asking for exactly what you want.
Yeah.
At the restaurant counter, it's like, give me 2 pieces of sausage, 2 eggs scrambled with butter
Right.
on 1 plate.
And then you get the sausage raw because you didn't tell the guy to cook them.
Exactly.
So
It's your fault.
It's your fault. You didn't tell him to cook them, right?
Yeah.
And then the guy burnt them because you didn't tell them to stop.
Yeah. Stop cooking them at some point because they're going to burn.
Right. Exactly.
And it doesn't care about burning or not. Like that you'd have to tell it what burning means.
Just
I love that.
Exactly.
Okay, so you got a job at IBM. What was that like initially? Were you scared? I mean, was it intimidating?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we arrived, and it was a very interesting job at IBM. I work as a full stack, and I joined a team that was composed by 2 or 3 other full stack people with not a lot of experience, and a boss that was not a developer at all. And there was a very senior developer that was very, very helpful. That was my first mentor, and
Awesome.
that he's out there someday. I think he moved to the US. Anyways, it was frightening. It was frightening to work in a project that at the end you work on something that is related to show some models and data science Python scripts that people are selling for millions and millions of dollars, and they're using your code, and like, that's intimidating, and let's try to do this as good as possible. And it was a very good experience. I think it was a fantastic school. We got to travel a little bit. We got to work with different people all over the US, in Singapore, in London, met very, very good quality people. And that's the point I felt that I was ready either to move teams or to start looking for a job. And the way that I found my current job at Hypop is very, very cool. I don't know if you want to move to there right now, or you want to
talk a little bit? Yeah, that sounds great.
So I was still trying, what do I do at IBM? I want to move teams or anything. And I was sitting in a cafe having my thoughts, and I see a guy that opens a computer, and I see AngularJS on his code. I was like, oh, that's AngularJS. And he's like, yeah, how do you know? Well, I code with AngularJS. And we started talking about code, and then I asked him, so what do you do? I'm building a platform that helps developers to find a job. I was like, that sounds interesting. It sounds like something that I could use right now. And he says, okay, cool. So let's meet and have an interview. And he basically interviewed me in the same cafe. We sat, I think, like 3 weeks later, and he interviewed me there. This guy, he still has the platform, and he interviewed me there. He told me, Rony, your profile is going to be hard to sell. I got it. Like, I got it. I know that. That's true. So leave it to me. I'm going to talk to people and explain what do we have here. And after a while, he started getting into interviews, and I found this amazing position at Hypop. Hypop today is an HR management software, SaaS, very huge platform. And I passed the interview at that moment. I had a little bit more experience. You prepare yourself. You go to Code Wars. You go to
nice.
It was very, very cool experience. I got from this huge corporation, I got to a small startup that were around 60, I think 50, 60 people when I got there. Today we are 350.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was, I've been at Hypop for 3.5 years, and I touch almost, I think, every area of the system. Probably the login is the only thing that I haven't touched because nobody touches that, nobody dares. But I work there as a front-end developer. I know the platform. I work with so many people. I've been a mentor. I have buddies. I interview, and right now I'm also in a management path. So now I'm managing a little squad with 3 other developers, and we're building from scratch a whole new feature. And I had to do a little bit of full stack as well, get into the server, learn some Kotlin, and do presentations, demo features in front of the whole company. It is a really, really big development. And the company has an amazing work-life balance. Right now I'm working from home. Tomorrow I'm going to the office. It is very good. It's a very, very challenging product. I get to work with product managers, designers, and the quality of the people is just very good. And
That's
I've been part basically of as well of interviewing people. And this is an interesting subject because I interview a junior. We hired a junior person not long ago in my team. I was actively part of the recruitment as well. And when you are interviewing people to the company from the side of the interview, is you're basically doing a pull request to the company. It's very cool. It's very cool. Like you're in charge of reviewing. You're doing a pull request to the company. You're bringing someone that who's going to stay there, that's going to have an impact, and you're gambling that this person is going to do well, is going to develop, and it's very cool. So interviewing juniors, interviewing senior people as well, and being active part of the process is
that's amazing. How would you have interviewed? Okay, so let's say 2016 Rony comes in to interview at Hi Bob. How would you have done in your own interview?
I think that I will have done very bad if I was a junior because I'm very nerd and I'm a very dorky person, and I will go and I will research the company. I will go to Crunchbase and search the company and see the investments and see what the product does. Try to get a demo, see what they do, check YouTube, check their social, and really do homework in order to get as ready as much. Because when you're a junior developer, other than your own personal projects, you don't have a lot to offer.
Yeah, right.
You have to be above the other 280 applicants that are junior, same as you, that they're bringing the same as you. How do you distinguish yourself other than motivation, that really knowing the product, really trying to understand, really showing that you are okay? Give me a chance. Like let's do it. I can do something good here. And that is something that as an interviewer is the first thing that when I say a junior, if the person doesn't even remember what company is coming for interview, that's a big red flag, and that this is a real case.
Yeah. How many, all right, you get 200 something applicants, right, for a job. Of those applicants, I mean, how many of them are aloof, like in that category of like they don't even know where they're at kind of thing? And
we filter resumes very well, and then we have an HR person that makes the call, but we used to do calls as well, phone calls before. I used to be part of the screening. And in general, you realize, I will say I think like half of the people don't pass this, 70% of the people, I will say, don't pass this phone screening.
Okay.
And then the first interview, you reduce the funnel even more. It's we're picky. We're picky with our values. We're picky with the motivation. We're picky with the company culture. We care about people.
You mentioned personal projects, but of those who you end up hiring, what sets them apart for you?
First of all, I will say that other than the motivation, I already said that for me is very important. Curiosity.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you gauge that? How do you gauge motivation and curiosity? Like the way they talk, but
the way they talk, many people will say if they don't solve it doesn't really matter at the level of a junior, you're expecting the person to fail. But if the person fails and tells you, okay, I'm done, and closes the computer and goes home and does nothing, but many people will say, okay, this is very interesting. I learned something new. I'm gonna even solve it at home and I will send it to you later. Cool. I wasn't able to solve it like in the last an hour. I'm gonna solve it, and I solve it anyways. And in many cases, you will see, and the person solved it and really took an extra step to understand and process what was going on there.
So if they come in for a technical interview and you ask them a question or have them solve something and they can't do it, what sets people apart is this desire to regardless, I'm going to do it. Because what you're saying is you're a junior, you're probably going to fail anyways, but it's more about how you fail, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. The how you fail is most important than either if you solve it or not. Even if you solve it, I will be, we're having a Zoom interview, probably you just Google the answer. And that we've had also cases like that. We've had our interviews are hard. They are hard, and what I'm checking there is how this person's gonna face frustration, you know.
Yeah.
Same as I faced it when I was learning to code, and I face it also both at IBM and at HiBob. You face frustration, and how do you deal with it? How are you
Yeah.
going to overcome this? If the person really cannot move and is freezing and paralyzed, okay, let's put a break. Maybe I'm gonna offer him. You want me to turn off my camera so you can focus and things a little bit along. Okay, I'll turn it on. Let's talk. What's going on? Explain me your thought.
That's great, man. So I was going to ask, right, one of the things that we talk about a lot is consistency, right? Like for some periods of time in your life, you can have intensity, right? Like the phase in which you were at Elevation Academy going through the boot camp, that was intense, right? But I'm sure that level of intensity you couldn't keep up forever. So at some point, you're just going to have to get consistent. And my question to you would be like, you're on your way and you have already built an amazing software engineering career. Like, what are the things, either the areas, the mindset things, the habits, whatever it is, what are the things that you've been consistent in that has led to, you getting this far?
The first thing I will say is the self-respect. Okay, I think that started at very early beginning when I went for an interview. I remember I went to an interview in a startup that doesn't exist anymore, and they didn't treat me with respect. And I noticed that, and I was okay. They're just being like extremely cheap here. They're really just trying to squeeze me here, and I don't like this. And I rejected them. They offered me the job, and I was like, thank you. No, like at the moment, I'm not going to continue with the process. And I started to learn a little bit of self-respect, which helped me understand the value that I'm a person who can bring something in. So when you have that base settled on, you start building experience, and you start gathering the experience as well, and you learn how to deal with people and on your daily job, because you're not only a developer that not only writes code. You deal with many people during your routine, either as product managers or designers, your own team members, everyone. You're always talking to people and trying to understand our clients, and there's always someone else using the code that you're going to use. So even if you don't like to, your code is going to be used by a person. So having that in mind is good. I think that you have peaks, you have stability, but you also have peaks of stress, ups and downs. They come and go. You have deadlines to meet, and there are times that you have to stay longer at the office, and it happens. I try to keep my work-life balance. I'm strict with it, and my boss knows that my Slack is turned off after 7 p.m. And if my boss needs me, really needs me, she was gonna have to call me on my personal phone, right?
Awesome.
Especially now during COVID, it is necessary to establish some boundaries and really respect yourself and establish like this is my time, and the rest of the time is when I'm working.
I love it. Okay, so self-respect, and I think there's a part of that. It sounds like confidence, right? Like you sound very confident that like you're worth being hired. You're worth the work you're given, and that you can produce good work too. I think that's a huge issue. I think for a lot of beginner developers is that they would even have the kind of confidence that ultimately would build the respect that they would have for themselves in that. And I think the reality is like, no one knows what they're doing in the beginning, so it's okay to be, I don't know, nervous, but that's not the same thing as not being able to be confident or respect yourself. Okay. I did want to ask about Tel Aviv because I think, I was telling you kind of jokingly that, in terms of podcast charts, like we rank well in Israel, which is hilarious to me in some ways. And so my gut here is to say, hey, Rony, tell us about Tel Aviv for all the listeners who don't know about Tel Aviv, but it sounds like maybe a lot of our listeners do know about Tel Aviv, but still, I bet it's quite a bit harder to rank in the US than it is in Tel Aviv. So that being said, like what's unique about working in Israel and the startup culture? Because I know from experience of living there that it was so different. There's just so much energy, despite the fact that relatively speaking, okay, here, I'll give you an example real quick and I'll stop talking. I remember my wife, she started like this moms group where she would meet up with kids. She'd meet up with my son and a bunch of other moms and their kids like every day of the week in different parks and stuff. And it was kind of like, most kids in Israel, they start going to preschool whenever they're like 3 months old or something. And that's different than in the US. You know what I mean? Like you keep your kid home until they're like 4 or 5 in the US. So she kind of like created this group of renegade moms and just it was a cool international group of women from all over the world who were living in Tel Aviv. And she noticed one woman was always posting about Waze on her Facebook. And Sarah was like, "Oh, does your like husband work at Waze? My husband's kind of in tech also. It's so cool." And she was like, "Yeah, he started it." Sarah's like, "What?" And so like she comes home and tells me this, and I'm like Googling it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like he was literally like he literally is the guy who wrote the app Waze. They sold it for Google for like $1 bajillion. I was like, "What's their house like? Is their house so cool?" And she was like, "I mean, it's nicer than our house, but it's not insane, But I think that captured the spirit of Tel Aviv. Like it's so small. Like you could be next to somebody who started a $1 billion company and they also live in a crappy apartment and go to the park on the weekend. You know what I mean? Like everyone is just like, it's a great community. So anyways, I'll say, but yeah, what's unique about it there for you? What made you want to stay whenever, you moved there back in the day?
Well, yeah, Tel Aviv is a place that has a very, very special vibe. Is a In the same block, if you're walking in one block around the block, you're gonna hear probably 6 languages at least. Like it's something ridiculous. You're gonna hear Hebrew, you're gonna hear Arabic, you're gonna hear not only speaking people, the people yell. People yell a lot.
Yes.
So this energy. People just
man,
yell. For some reason, people yell and honk.
It took me a long time to stop yelling at people whenever we moved back here, like in the street. And you can get shot here for that, not in Tel Aviv. That's just how you communicate.
Yeah, I just spent a couple of weeks in the US, and the actual jet lag, I call it the Israeli jet lag, that it takes you to get used again to the Israeli society after being in a civilized country,
Yeah.
Anyways, you hear languages when you move around the block. You're gonna hear Hebrew, you're gonna hear Arabic, you're gonna hear English, you're gonna hear Russian, you may hear Spanish, you're gonna hear Portuguese, all these things all around. Everything's cosmopolitan. They call it the potluck. The country is a potluck where people came, and it's built by immigrants, and it is pretty young, and it's pretty much a teenager country. That's how I say it. And a teenager is very jumpy, is very aggressive, is always challenging, the superiors, challenging the US, I'm not gonna follow your rules, so I'm here making startups, I'm not gonna make this. And that somehow really move forward. And it's a country that most people, especially Tel Aviv, let's talk a little bit of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv everyone is in tech. Everyone, most of the people. You go to a cafe, everyone is with it's kind of like, like San Francisco, like Silicon Valley, it's like that. Everyone works in tech. It's not new. I have friends in Chile, and then I tell them, so I'm a front-end developer. A front-end what? I have no clue what it is. Here, you're like, of course, people know here what is a front-end developer. In Chile, you think anyone knows? Like one of my friends, one is an architect, and he knows how to open his Gmail and put his password in, and that's his know. Like he has no idea what is front end, what's back end, what's database, what's this, nothing. But here is in the lingo, it's part of the culture, it's brief, it moves around, and it's very cool to be part of it. Yeah. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I definitely suggest people check out Tel Aviv for fun. It's an amazing place. You mentioned earlier too about the boot camp scene, right? Whenever we were kind of talking, like whenever I got there wasn't much going on. Like what's that like these days? Do you ever interact with boot camps at all these days, or?
I don't interact with them. I do know that there are more. There are maybe like 5 or 6 more, because there is a very, very big need of developers in Tel Aviv. I think only my company, we have around 30 openings for developers. And that's almost half of a little bit less than half of our whole development. Like we want to really, really, really grow, and we have that need. And that's basically every startup and every company in Israel is like that. I think there are around 200,000 or like that, something like ridiculous amount of developers that is in need. And that's really making people to bring boot camps and people switching careers and making this change. Right now, next week, in our company, we're making a little boot camp. We took a bunch of junior people and we're doing a boot camp ourselves, only for backend though. It's only for backend. They're learning Kotlin, they're learning Git, they're learning things just all fresh, either from universities or from other programs, but no experience. That's cool.
I love that, man. That's so cool. I really think that that's the future for companies, right? They've got to figure out, like, at some point, and this has been kind of a soapbox of mine, like at some point, like you can't mine anymore. You have to start farming, right? Like a lot of companies are, I mean, every company I talk to, literally every company I talk to here in the US is, oh, we're desperate for we're desperate for mid-level engineers or senior engineers. We'll pay anything. We'll give you $10,000 in cash if you find us one. You know, like there's so many companies that I've found. I mean, I was reading a PDF by this kind of a Web3 company, and literally the PDF said, "Oh, by the way, we're hiring. We'll give you $10,000 cash if you refer somebody," which is crazy to me, you know. But so at some point, you're going to mine the workforce to death, and you're going to have to start figuring out farming initiatives of, all right, how do you create junior developers from people like you who start off like organically loving and enjoying it, not just the people like you said who want to just make a bunch of money. All right, hey Rony, before we go, man, what's something new that you're learning, or what are you excited about, like on the horizon of like what's the next piece of technology that you want to get into? What have you been playing with that's exciting to you?
So right now, we're doing a lot of Kotlin at our company. We're learning this really cool Java-based language, and it's very, very interesting. It's hardcore backend. It's really, really hardcore backend, and we've been doing a lot of interesting things at the same time. Technically, we have a we call it our gateway, and it's basically another layer of a server to serve many clients, but it's managed on the client side. So I've been developing that as well. So for example, if you need to change, update something on the mobile app and in the web, you will update it there, and then it will serve many clients at the same time. It's a very, very, very nice thing. And it happens with mobile a lot, because mobile, you have to make people update their apps. With this, you don't need to. And it's very, very useful. So I've been doing things with that as well. And we're using a lot of new technologies. We're using Angular. React is extremely popular as well, but our company, we're using Angular, and we're not afraid of taking people who don't even have experience with a framework, and or they come from the React world. We just use the latest Angular. We do talks. We use RxJX, which is, they just talk together. They just blend very, very well, the Angular and RxJX, and it's a very, very cool technology and a way of thinking of in the web development today.
Love it, man. Man, Rony, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I think your perspective, because, you know, honestly, when I think about junior developers and like how far back I can go, you're kind of as far back as I can go. You know what I mean? So to see like where someone's at from the earliest stages, man, and it's so cool that you're getting into management, you're interviewing people, you're exploring new technologies, you love your job. I'm so excited for you. It was really good to catch up with you. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah, it was great. And please, anyone who wants to connect with me via LinkedIn, I'm always open.
Do you have any plugs for how you want people to reach out, if at all?
I don't know. You really use social media other than LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm there. I'm following your challenge, so I like that. I'm liking every post. So they're over there on LinkedIn, Rony Rosenberg, and I'm always happy to assist. Any question, anything, and very open always.
Cool. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate you.
Of course.
That does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. Again, I hope you can join us for Dev 30. That is our 30-day cohort-based JavaScript course that costs nothing, which starts on February 14th, 2020. So you can find the link for that in the show notes. And until next time, have a good time coding. Okay, I really didn't know what I was going to say there in the outro, but have a good day.